1051, I'm on scene. I'll be assuming Caroline Street Command. I got a 2.5-story wood occupied multiple dwelling. I got heavy fire from the second floor, Charlie side. I have an exposure on the Delta side. We have one line stretch not in operation yet. Primary searches are underway. Status of the fire is doubtful. One passing command. I'm on the first line. Service speed advised. We're on scene. 2-story wood frame. I got heavy fire from the Alpha side.
Good day, fans of the Volley Chief podcast. I am back with part 2 of our TV/movie special. I brought back my expert panel, Lieutenant Matt Casini from the Derby Fire Department.
How's it going?
Good. You know, I wanted to, before we started talking about fire movies, I wanted to make an honorable mention yesterday because as our lives have it, with where we are with children and things like that, we had the flu weekend, right? So
Yes,
which is always a great time. But it was 1:00 in the morning, Friday night, and I was like bored out of my mind, trying to find something to watch, and
okay.
I put on an episode of Chips. And I said, I feel like remiss if we didn't mention Chips, even though we've been talking, it's all fire, because
Yes.
Chips was just as good. And I would say that Chips influenced us also, not just, Emergency, those shows, but I think Chips needs an honorable mention.
Yeah, Chips. I mean, why was there like fire episodes in Chips?
No, but just like growing up in wanting to be in emergency services.
Yes, okay, I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like you still played Chips. I mean, you still rode your bike. You thought to yourself, looking around, if you were driving along with someone, the theme song was going through your mind.
Well, that's when I used to watch Cops. That's how I felt watching Cops, and it's like I get all sweaty watching Cops and get all like, yeah, I'm getting right. To this day, I still get sweaty watching it. It's such a great show. Yeah, but no, Chips, yeah, Chips was definitely a good. I think that was a little before I was born, so that was around your ear. So, but yeah, I mean, watching repeats on it, I liked it. I thought it was great. There was 2 great actors in it, and it was. Then Chips came out with everything. It was like Chips was like the Kiss of supplies, games. They came out with books and everything.
Well, Emergency had all that.
Yeah, they did. But
I remember having like emergency coloring books or but I just felt like we should honorably. I was watching some John Baker and Frank Poncherello, and I said I feel like we should mention it.
Okay.
But today we're going to the big screen, right?
Yes.
And and it's funny because when I was in college, I had to take an art class, so I took Intro to Filmmaking, and the guy literally did like a drawing for what movie you had to review. And we were doing early movies, silent era movies, before the talkies, as they would say in Hollywood.
Yes.
And I drew Life of an American Fireman. And so I had to watch this movie, and it was pretty crazy. It was shot in 1902. It's one of the earliest movies surviving today. And it has like, I think like 8, maybe 9, 10 scenes. That's it. But it basically goes through like a fireman sleeping, and then like there's a fire, and they hit the pole, and it really like it just follows a fire, and it's back in the day it was, breathtaking. But we decided that today we want to talk about firefighting movies, and there are a lot of them.
Yes,
and
there are.
I think that the other thing we have to mention is that I think that I would agree that the movie has to be about the fire service because, so for example, classic 80s movie, Joe versus the Volcano.
Yeah.
Joe was a New York City fireman, and one of the things that they used to play on him was that he suffered PTSD from what he saw in the fire department, but his bravery came from being a firefighter.
Not the not
Also,
not the volcano. He wasn't
not the
scared of.
volcano. No.
No.
And then also you had movies like, if you remember, there was the one Collateral Damage with Arnold,
Yes, I have.
where
That's on my
yeah,
list.
he was a firefighter, so it touched on firefighting, but
It
he
was Art.
really
It
it
was
was
Arnold
it was
Schwarzenegger.
more of an action movie, but
Yeah.
let's go down the list. All right, so let's hit some movies. Now,
Uh,
obviously, I would be remiss
mhm.
if I didn't mention the classic 1935 Mickey's Fire Brigade,
Okay.
which obviously is an old movie where Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are firemen. So I would be remiss if I didn't throw that in there, obviously, and you know why. But
Yes, we. Yep.
all right, so Serde, let's do this here.
So
I'm gonna
I
go
got.
with
Where do you got first? I'm gonna
all
go
right.
with. You do the first one.
All right, so again, how do we count frequency? So Frequency
That.
was a movie made in 2000 starring one of my favorite actors, Randy Quaid, who is I'm sorry, excuse me, Dennis Quaid. Randy's
That's
his
good.
crazy brother.
Yep.
It's a movie in 2000 where basically a New York City firefighter is killed, and his son becomes a cop. And
Yep.
due to the northern lights hitting New York, he's able to time travel, if you will, via a radio and talk to his father, where he tells his father about how he's going to die at the fire,
Hmm.
and they uh, so it's not a firefighting movie, but I think it's mentionable because there is a lot of fire, like the father dies in a fire. There are some fire scenes shot, so I think that's mentionable.
That's on that definitely is. That's on the list. That's a great movie.
Yep.
I think the actors in it are good, and it actually is. It stays about, it's about family, and it's about the firefighting, and the kid just wants to get back in time just to talk to his father. So yeah, I would put that. That's up on the list. I would add that to a maybe a top 10 list of
Okay.
firefighting. I have one. How about? All right. Well, actually, I have two. One of
Okay.
them, one of them is the 2020, The King of Staten Island.
Okay. Yep. That was
Uh,
20. That's from
that
Saturday Night Live. What's his name?
Peter Davison. There you go.
Yes, Pete Davidson
Um,
and now again, where that comes into play is that Pete Davidson's father was a New York City firefighter killed on 9/11
yes,
in
and
real life. In real life.
in real life, yes, in real life, I think he was only like what 9 years old, 9 or 10 years old.
Yes.
And it's funny because in that movie, you see all the pictures. The movie was actually filmed at his childhood home, and you actually see all the pictures of his father. And he was on ladder company somewhere in Manhattan. He was on the ladder company. He was on the job for a while. I think like 30 years he was already on the job. And it's supposed to be like a comedy. It's a comedy, but then it gets more serious because the mother starts dating a fireman and he doesn't like it. And come to find out, all those firemen that were acting in that movie were actually friends with his father. So back in the day, so they were in the firehouse, and he actually becomes friends with the mother's boyfriend and actually goes to the firehouse. And it starts off as funny, then it gets into serious, and there's a lot of like conversations. The guy from Con Air, what's his name? We'll get into his. He was a fireman in New York in Engine 55.
Oh, Steve Buscemi.
There we go. He's
Yes.
in it.
Yeah.
And if you notice, every single fire movie, he's in the movies.
Right.
And it's funny, but that comes to another one. I know it's not a movie, but it was the documentary that Steve did, and it was called a Good Job in 2014.
Correct.
Now that was very good. He actually he went back to Engine 55, and a lot of guys knew who he was. And um I would put those definitely on a top 10 list, especially a Good Job. Um we I mean, we could sit here all day and go through movies, but like, let's try to keep with,
All right, so
yeah,
let's keep with the theme of now another movie that I would mention because it's firefighting themed is 15 minutes,
15
right?
minutes.
2000 movie it was came out right around 2000, directed by I'm sorry, not directed by, starring, if I remember correctly, it starred De Niro, Ed Burns, and Kelsey Grammer.
Yep.
And it's about you know, the old reference to everybody's world famous for 15 minutes, where De Niro is like the most legendary detective in the NYPD, and Ed Burns' character is a fire marshal for the FDNY, and they're tracking a a killer, a bad guy. Again, there's not a, there's some fire in the movie, but
Hmm.
he, you know, Ed Burns' character as a fire marshal, he actually he does talk and speak like a fireman. I know at some points, you know, he makes a mention that they were like hiding the witness at the Rock, which is the FDNY's term for their fire academy. I
Yep.
know in the beginning of the movie, he calls in a fire, gives his a fire ID, and tells him transmit at 1075. So like there are some references, but that's another one where, and again, a different side of the fire service, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's yeah, that was a good one. I haven't really seen that one. I heard about it, but I haven't really. Um, I have one here. Hold on,
hit me
let me
with
get
it.
it. This one's gonna be. Well, we could get into that. We'll get in this one. Oh, now I did a little Google searching and and seeing what were the top movies of all time, and I'm shocked because all the websites I have gone on, only The Brave is the number one firefighting movie, and
Uh,
it beats out our other two that we're going to talk
well,
about.
right, but I think the reason behind that
Yeah.
is because only the like I obviously, and for those who don't know, Only the Brave is the 2017 movie about the hotshots, the Granite Mountain hotshots that were killed in a fire, and I believe there was how many of them passed away?
12.
12 members of the Granite Mountain
12.
hotshots passed away. Josh Brolin was in it. Jennifer Connelly was in it. Jeff Bridges. It had some big star power in it. It's, you know, based on the true story of them, and
Yes.
it. I think what makes that one different is and the reason why that one is rated as the best uh firefighting movie is uh it's a true story, right? There's
Yes.
you know, I mean, although if you look at the film, I believe, like, according to Hollywood, it was a bomb. It didn't make back the money that it first, you know, put out. So I like Only the Brave, and again, it's different because, you know, the average public doesn't know that we see a difference between wildland firefighters and structural firefighters. So
Yes.
to us and to people in our realm, it's you know, I hate to say it's not about the firefighting that we know. It's still a firefighting movie, but it's not our firefighting, if that makes sense. I think that's the most polite way to say it.
Yes, but I love the movie. I think the movie
Great movie.
great. It was a great movie. The thing is that like Miles Teller, who plays Brandon McDowell, he was the guy that actually came on, and the guy, he was in a lot of trouble in his young years, and he didn't have a job, and they gave the kid a chance to come on to be a hot shot, and he proved that he could make it. And then the final scene where you know Josh Brolin actually, he's the main commander of the hot shots, leaves him behind and tells him that you're going to watch if this jumps the line, and he sees it. And I think that it hits him because there's a documentary out and he's talking about it like he's the only survivor of that whole crew. And it's like this kid's been through hell, in his teen years and everything. And then now it's back to, like he was saying, now I'm back to day one. Like, now how do I start all over? I just lost every single one of my friends, and I was told to stay back and I couldn't do anything. I mean, it kind of hits hard, and it's just like listening to him and watching the movie. And then now there's a book out. I read the book, and it's just it was good. It was a good movie. It really hit you, and it just shows you like these guys worked. These guys work their ass off. They work, and it's crazy. I didn't know like too much. Like everybody looks at the firefighting. Oh, wildland firefighting, this and that, and it's like, yeah, who wants to do that? That labor intense work. It's like nobody wants to work like that.
And
Um,
I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Brendan at he was the guest speaker at one of the EMS Fire Pro Expo a couple of years ago.
oh,
So I actually have
that's
met him and sat
awesome.
down and talked to him for a little bit, and good guy. And I agree with you that for us it's a little bit I don't want to say it's different because it's not the
No,
firefighting that we talk about. Which then, if we're going to talk about that topic, right?
yeah,
Well, no, I'm saying if we're going to talk about um, you know, the non-structural firefighting, I think this is the time that we would talk about. Uh, and now it's blown my mind. The Red Adair story. Hellfight. Was it Hellfighters? Yeah,
Hellfighters.
Hellfighters, 1968, starring John Wayne, where he basically loosed on Red Adair, who was the famous. They fought the oil well fires,
Yes.
and that again another firefighting movie, but not as the structural firefighting as we like. And a great movie if you get a chance. It's one of those old movies you throw on for a little bit.
Here-
Another couple, I guess, honorable mentions. Really, I know you have to mention this because this
mm,
is probably one of the most profitable movies about a firefighter, and that was the 1987 romantic comedy Roxanne. And
Roxanne.
out of it, right, with Steve
Yeah.
Martin. And again, it
Yep.
wasn't about firefighting, but everyone was firefighters. Uh, Honorable mention, another movie that I would definitely say is Fire Trapped on the 37th Floor, which was a
That,
1991 TV movie starring Lee Majors as the incident commander, and that was about the first interstate bank fire in downtown LA.
number 3 on IMBD.com's list. That's number
uh,
3.
that's another one I think that you have to mention. I can remember, again, we're old. 1991, I do remember staying up, like
Hmm.
waiting to watch that that watch it. It was like back when made for TV movies were a thing. So but I think it's
Hellfire.
time, Sergey. I think
Oh,
it's time we start talking about the big ones.
okay, we're gonna let you know Hellfighters actually got rated number 9
Really?
out of it. Yep, and there's one more. Hold on, before we get into big ones,
Yeah.
there's actually a good one that I actually watched a couple months ago. It's called Red Skies Over Montana. It's 1952, and it was about the U.S. Forestry Service and the paratrooper firefighters in Montana, and it was good because it was the 50s and it was about firefighting, and it was a love story, and it was about firefighting, and it was black and white. It was just one of those old movies that were out, and it's actually number 11 on the top 20 lists. And I was like, wow, I just watched that a couple weeks ago. I think Amazon Prime has it. It's good. It's a good
Okay.
forestry one. But now we'll get into the
Now let's
big
get into
ones.
the big ones. So I'm going to start. I'm going to go the order of. I guess you'd say okay. So I don't know how we'll put this one up there first, but let's first talk about. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Okay, all
Right.
right.
Again, 2007.
Yep.
Adam Sandler movie. Kevin James. They play two firefighters who in New York City pretend to be in a
Yeah.
relationship in order to get by insurance.
Yes.
Things I loved about that movie. Dan Aykroyd was their captain. He played the crazy captain. But again, it's a comedy. It's not what we're kind of talking about here, but I think it
It's
definitely deserves to be mentioned.
it's
Um,
yeah, that's a good one.
you
I
know,
like that.
all right, but
It's
I think in descending order. Okay, I
okay.
think the top three, right? I think we have three big ones left to talk about.
Yes, we do.
All right,
And
so the number three is Ladder 49.
for number 3, okay, I will put
Number
that in number
three.
3.
I
Yes.
put that at number three. So let's see. It came out in '04. It
Oh
was
four.
obviously starting John Travolta, Robert Patrick, uh,
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix, and about the Baltimore Fire Department, about Ladder Company 49. Um, and it
Well,
basically,
the day we all went to go see that
yep,
at the movie theaters, yeah, Seymour movie theaters, we all went to go see that, and I mean, people liked it. I didn't like in the beginning, John Travolta, like, when he gets on scene, he's putting his jacket on his helmet and he's like, I'm in command now. And like, he had this big fire. It's going in this factory, and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on here? Like the acting was like kind of like and then when it got into like the story life of Joaquin Phoenix and that was cool. His first fire with John Travolta when they're going in that roll house, I thought it was really cool. They're stepping on the rats and everything, and um, it was good. I put it at 3. I'm not
yeah.
like crazy
Out
about
of
it,
the
but
big three, it is not my favorite.
yeah,
I would say that it does a great job of showing the career and a lot of the inside of the firehouse. I a couple cool things too. I do remember back, in the early 2000s, I remember buying a couple Buff videos
hmm
where, Travolta and Joaquin Phoenix were on scene actually at, you know, responding to and working with firefighters, which, was pretty cool that like they were talking about it. And, the other thing too that made it uh kind of like neat for our group was that was very, very like right smack dab in the middle of when the Firehouse magazine's
oh
conference
yeah,
every year used to be in Baltimore.
Baltimore. Yes, that's
So,
right.
on top of it was set in Baltimore. You had the conference in Baltimore. So I remember like at the expo there was a booth for the movie. Some of the cast were there,
Yeah,
signing autographs
we
and
had that poster sign. Yeah, we got the poster
yeah,
sign. Yeah, I think that was the last year for
yep.
Baltimore also. Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, Baltimore Fire Department's awesome. I think they're great. They burn all the time. And it's just like, in the beginning was kind of like okay here. And then it got into the storyline, and it's just like every normal firefighting movie, it has the family, they're worrying about if they're gonna die and blah blah, all that stuff. I thought the way that Joaquin Phoenix played his role as a probie, and he worked his way up, and it was fun. There was a lot of funny one-liners in there, like when they're on the roof of that vacant, and his buddy's like, "Oh, two-story wood, just let it burn." There was some funny one-liners in there. I mean, it was
Yeah,
not.
and I think too, it has a couple cool things in it that I could connect to. The funeral scene, the honor guard in the
Yes,
background is the Bridgeport Fire Department honor guard.
really.
The one of the scenes that where the members are marching down the street, and in the background you can see the honor guard.
Yeah.
I saw my old hydrant guy, Mike Sullivan.
Wow.
Yeah. So what they had done was for the funeral, they actually put out like a call saying that they needed, extras, firefighting extras in Bridgeport. A couple guys, a bunch of the guys who do the honor guard went down, and in the honor guard, obviously our honor guard was a little bit more jazzed up than everybody else. So they pulled him out of the crowd to put him in. And I always laugh because every time you watch the movie and you go by, you're like, hey, I know those guys. So yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, I definitely I remember listening to Travolta talk about the movie being made, and I remember his seriousness that he took to the part, and his I think he definitely played a good part with the respect to the the profession. Same thing with the rest of the crew. But
Yes.
I mean, that's my number two or my number three. I'm sorry. Now, my number two is going to
hmm
surprise you
Oh my
because
God.
I think my number two all-time firefighting movie is Backdraft.
What? Hey.
Okay,
Okay.
so
All right. Yep. Okay.
all right, so
That's.
now 1991 Backdraft,
Yep.
Ron Howard movie starring Kurt Russell, William Baldwin, Scott Glenn, Donald Sutherland, De Niro.
Oh.
It had a absolute great cast. The I don't want to say the villain of the movie was JT Walsh, who
Yes.
Alderman Swayzak, we'll talk about him later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I love about Backdraft is, first of all, so all the movies we talked about so far, it was the
Yeah.
most financially successful,
Yes,
right?
it
Like
was.
you as much as you talk about like Ladder 49 again, it was by Hollywood standards, it was a flop. It didn't make back the money that they spent. So, it kind of was a flop, where Backdraft is one of the more profitable ones. But it was 1991. It follows
Mm-hmm.
the family of the McCaffrey brothers, right? Their
Yes.
father was a legendary New York City firefighter who was killed in the line of duty. Um, the older son went into the fire service and became a well-respected lieutenant on Engine Company 17, where his father was. A little bit reckless, but and then the younger McCaffrey joins the fire department after several attempts in several different career paths.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the difference, you know, Ladder 49 was about firefighting,
Yep.
where Backdraft has a little bit more, I guess you'd say, storyline with the arson fires and who's the arsonist. And you want to know what's actually kind of funny is I can remember my father had to go watch it,
Okay.
right? Like he had to go to like the noon show, so my brother and I can go uh to the evening show uh
So,
right, to see if it was, because again it was I forgot what it was rated, but
it
definitely
was
wasn't rated uh
it was rated R because of the top of the
okay,
fire truck scene.
top of the fire truck. There was also, I mean, that, and also, there was some burn victims, there was some dead bodies, but
Yes.
uh you know I
Um
I yeah, it
I I remember when this movie came out, and my father, being part of the fire department, he went out. I think it was him, Jackie Keith, Marty Persander, Mr. Hart. They all went out, and I remember I was saying, "Oh, where are you guys going? You going to see that fire movie?" And it was 91, and I wanted to go so bad to see it, but being rated R, we couldn't see it. I didn't actually see Backdraft until like 1997, 98. Because they were my parents were blocking out the fire truck scene, like they didn't want me
okay.
seeing it. Yeah, but I mean, that's my top number one movie. I mean, I could say the whole movie line from line. I loved everything about it. I don't know, there was something about that movie it just got you so pumped up, and just watching everything, and the acting was great. The old trucks, three-quarter
Well,
inch.
see, that's what I think. I think nowadays what makes Backdraft so, I'd say, special to us is it's the end of the era, right?
Yes.
After that, there's no more three-quarter boots. There's no more, that was like the send off. I do remember, though, them talking about like Backdraft had kind of the Top Gun effect on firefighting, where after Top Gun came out, the
Elaborate.
Navy saw a massive spike in applicants for the Navy and for for fighter pilots. Backdraft had that kind of same thing. After Backdraft came out, a lot of people went on into wanted to be firefighters because of it. And there's actually, it's funny because I want to, me, I'm a big movie guy. I like
Yeah.
movies. There's actually a Backdraft tour. A lot of the movie was shot in Chicago, and there's a Backdraft tour that you can take, and they take you around to, obviously, the firehouses that are in it, the sites of the fires. So like the apartment fire, it's actually an apartment building in the middle of the neighborhood near Chicago, and there's even a couple of YouTube videos where some of the YouTubers that do movie scenes, they go around and actually show you like the it was shot right in Chicago with Chicago Fire.
Well,
Um,
so now there is a okay, it's called Olive Seven Garden, and it's on Instagram. And I've been following it. They actually are showing posts from Backdraft there, and there were so many deleted scenes. And now
yes.
you get to see what's going on. But most of the guys that were riding on the engine, on engine 17, they were actually paid Chicago
They were
firefighters.
correct. They were firefighters. Yeah.
And it was the guy in the back seat when the younger McCaffrey brothers running, and he, I'm sorry, I'm Brian, I'm sorry. He was on the job for like 32 years. He
Yeah.
was. Um, but it was funny because then it gets into this Instagram page shows you all the behind the scenes, and Kurt Russell and all them, they all spent months with Chicago Fire Department and trained with them and doing all this, and they showed like the factory fire, like how they started it and everything. It was so great. Like there were so many deleted scenes that should have been definitely in the movie, and I'm like,
Right.
wow, that would have been so much better if that scene was in there. um just how the first factory fire with Swayzak coming, they're coming off the thing. It's just everybody knows the lines. Big
Oh
in.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a movie that will stick with you for the rest of your life. That every single line, and we joke all the time about it. Oh, who needs a second lead out? A
Right.
second lead
Right.
out. No, what is a second lead out? That's what we want to know.
I do. I think, and that's my number two. Okay. And
Okay.
I know that, I know that you'll probably, again, you'll argue against me. And then my number one,
Yeah.
my favorite firefighting movie is the first American
Fire
disaster film from 1974, The Towering
Tower.
Inferno.
I put it up
So
there.
now, uh, the, for those of you unfamiliar with it, it is the world's first like major multiple studio disaster film. And it was like the first time, you think every summer, right? You go back and think about, right, like 2012, Volcano. I mean, name your disaster
Yes.
film. This was the first one. And then what makes it unbelievably awesome is two things. Number one,
Well,
the first new battalion chief that gets his butt kicked the whole fire, Steve McQueen.
Steve
I
McQueen.
mean,
Yep.
right. Like, I always tell everyone, how can you possibly, uh, you know, go up against the king of cool as a fire chief? Um, and for those of you unfamiliar with the movie and what makes it, it was released in 1974. It earned over $200 million. It was the highest grossing film of '74. It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. And when I tell you, like we said,
Oof.
it was a uh, who's who of '70s movies. Right? Ready? Steve
Yes.
McQueen, Paul Newman were the two leads. It was Steve McQueen being the battalion chief, Paul Newman being the architect. Sadly, Richard Chamberlain was kind of, I hate to say, the villain of the movie because he was the guy who changed the wiring diagrams that caused the fire, and he passed away, as a matter of fact, yesterday. So it is a little bit.
Oh wow.
But for the unfamiliar with it, they're dedicating in San Francisco the tallest building in the world. It's 1,700 feet. It was like a 140-story building, and they electrical subcontractor cheaped out. And when they have the opening night gala, and as I mentioned, right, McQueen,
Yep.
Paul Newman, William Holdman, Faye Dunaway, Fred Astaire, O.J.
OJ.
Simpson, Robert
OJ.
Vaughn, Robert
Yes.
Wagner. It was just a massive cast, and the building, obviously fires break out. Couple of my favorite lines when Steve McQueen goes up to the top floor to start evacuating everyone. I love it because he's in the elevator and he takes his turnout coat and gear off and he puts his tie on, buttons his shirt, like a good battalion chief would with his tie.
It's
And that's
not,
when the building owner tells him that he's going to go get the mayor and pull rank on him. And Steve McQueen looks right at him and says, "At a fire, Mister, I outrank everybody." And I love that one. It's just
it,
it's a lot of like '70s,
that was Rob.
over
That
the
was Rob.
top.
Robert Vaughn was the one that said
Yep,
that to him. He played senator. He played the Senator Gary Parker.
yep.
Now that's funny. That's funny name. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. No, I mean, Towering Furrow was a great movie because you know why? The movie was based the whole time inside that building, and it was all fire.
Right.
It was all fire stuff. It was all
Correct.
firefighter relating, and it was great. And plus, it was in the '70s. I like old movies like that, and at that time, the '70s was the era of everything was burning.
Right.
From New York to Chicago, Philly. So No, I thought it was great. I just thought that too, that OJ played the security. He was the main
OJ plays the
security.
security guard who runs. Yeah, yeah.
That's great. That's so
Um,
crazy.
it just it was crazy because it's big, if you will, and I mean, Fred Astaire was nominated for Best Actor.
Hmm.
It was nominated for Best Picture. But it was also, again, one of the first big movie collaborations among studios. Warner Brothers and Fox teamed up to make it together because it was so big, so expensive. Um, it really, kind of just uh, it was a different thing. But I just love you know, Steve McQueen played that battalion chief part so awesome. I can remember he asks the security guards what's in the building, and they tell him, it's just offices, some manufacturing, and like they ask him like what's the big deal, and like he gives a whole explanation
Hmm.
about how if there's any type of textile mill in the building, it'll give off noxious fumes, and how what if there's stuff that, and it was I thought it was like really I just again I think it's definitely uh my go-to movie for firefighting and over the top 70s acting and
Yeah, it was that time in that era too in the movie industry. I think a lot of movies were failing, and they had to get back on board. And I mean, for eight Oscars they were nominated for, and one of them was the best sound, like 1975. Having the best sound, like so. Warner Brothers did make money back. Everybody made money back, and it's funny because a lot of people don't know that movie. There's like, oh, Tower Inferno. Like no one knows it really. A lot of the younger generation firemen here that they don't know that movie kind of set the tone of making more fire movies, I think. You had the era in the 50s. There was some movies, but there wasn't that many. And I think
right.
like after Tower Inferno, like Chips Emergency came out and it started rolling. I mean, I thought it was a great. Didn't Disney have like a ride or something back in the
No,
day?
I was gonna talk
Oh,
about that in a minute, but I think one of the best lines of the movie is when Steve McQueen and Newman are talking and the fire's out and Steve McQueen says something like,
it's,
you're lucky there was like a low body count. But he goes, I'm gonna keep
it's,
eating smoke and bringing out bodies until someone
that's
asks us how to build them.
that's
And it
great.
yeah, like it
And where,
was
where, where did Steve? Who did Steve hang out with to get all those lines? That's
right, like
is
yeah,
he hanging out in L.A. Fire Department trying to find
right.
out? It's
And
crazy.
it is. I wonder like where they did that, but that's my go-to. Like I said, that's my favorite firefighting movie is Towering
I was
Inferno.
I would switch it around. I would put Backdraft. That was
You would put
one.
Backdraft first.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, I'm not talking about Cars Search and Rescue or Fireman Sam or any of the
Fireman Sam. What else we got? Oh,
that.
Fireproof.
Yes.
You got the
Remember the
independent movies.
guys? Remember that one? The guys.
The
It was right after
guys.
It came out after 9/11, and it
Yeah,
was about a crew that passed away in 9/11. Um, I mean, again, there was just a bunch of different
I think a lot.
different ones.
I think a lot more documentaries came out than movies, like Burn from
Right,
Detroit.
Burn. Oh, I forgot about
Uh,
Burn. Yeah, I mean that.
Bur-
But like you said, that's more of a documentary.
yeah, it's not like a movie, and it's weird because there's a lot of good documentaries out there. I mean,
Right,
and then we get talking into about movies, and then do we count advanced line fire videos? Like how
right.
many?
Remember
I to,
those? Oh God, advanced print and video and all those buff
yeah,
video. We used to have so many of
tons,
them. That's like you went to
tons.
the Milford Muster, or you went to
Yeah.
the fire shows to go buy.
The new
Uh,
the
oh,
new one that was coming out, like, and
right,
that's where like I consider those movies. I don't even they're movies. They're put on
Right. They're
DVDs and
documentaries. Oh yeah.
yeah, and they're 2 hours long, and these guys are just they were great because they were right up in front, and now this day and age we have a couple of those camera guys that are on YouTube, and they get up right up front. One of them's JJ, and
Yep.
Skyler. They're great at it, but I still miss like going. Man, we used to go to Pennsylvania, we used to go to Harrisburg. Hart used to buy 20 DVDs,
Right.
because we had to get every single one. But they were great. They were great
Yeah.
movies. Still got them all.
And
Those
then,
guys.
as you mentioned, the one thing I will say is that, Backdraft did win awards
Mhm.
for special effects, and at Universal Studios in Hollywood, there used to be a Backdraft attraction.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, so it used to be. I never went to it, even with all of my theme park prowess,
Wow. I'm.
because it opened in 1992 and closed in 2010, and it was the final scene. You went through the final factory fire, and
That's my
let's
brother.
see,
God damn it.
it was in Universal Studios Hollywood and in Universal Studios Japan, and when you did the tram tour
Yep.
uh, of Universal, it was on it, and it was definitely I think it was definitely
Yeah.
an
That's.
interesting thing. Yeah, that there was that that
Did they
attraction made.
did they make you suit up and try to go save
No,
X and
you didn't have to suit up to try to go get everyone. You just drove
yeah.
through in the cart. But yeah,
You're not you're not throwing a fire extinguisher at the fire.
no, you're not. Yeah, as you go in, they hand you a fire extinguisher.
Yeah,
So
and they're like, "That's my brother." God
uh,
damn it! I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like when I was small, I always thought, "Oh, that's firefighting. That's how it must be."
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we hit TV shows. We hit movies. Next week, we're gonna go to the books.
Yeah.
Right.
Books. A
We're gonna
lot of
talk some
books.
books. It's actually funny because right after we published the podcast 2 weeks ago, I got a text from Sean Fitch, the assistant chief in Derby,
Yeah.
who is he's the medical director, Mid-State Hospital. He's in charge of their paramedic program. His office wall, he has the 3 emergency comics hanging up on it, the 4 emergency comics. And he was like, he goes, I was listening to it, I was laughing. He's like, it's in my office. So
That's great. Yeah. Books.
so stay tuned next week as we hit the books.
And we're talking comic books, and we're talking regular novel books too, because
Yep.
I got a lot of those novel books.
All right.
So, all right, David.
Right. Thank you, Matt. We'll talk
No
to you
problem.
later.
See you later, Chief. Bye.
FD1's back in service. Commands terminated.